Georgia has their spring game this week. Coming up on Saturday. A lot of teams having their spring game this Saturday, next Saturday. Two really big Saturdays for spring games. But guess who had their spring game last Saturday? The Auburn Tigers. That's right, the War Eagles, the War Tigers, whatever it is we're calling Auburn these days, with brand new head coach, Uncle Lou's old buddy, Hugh Freeze. I'm on the record as far as how I feel about Hugh Freeze, personally and professionally. I think he's a pretty good coach, and he's obviously an amazing upgrade over Brian Harsin. I mean, the guy was a disaster. Auburn fans know that. So I'm not going to get into that. But in terms of what that will mean for Auburn over the next couple of years, I've kind of been on the fence. Again, I've done a couple of in-depth videos about my thoughts on Hugh Freeze at Auburn. That's not really the point of this video, but focusing on Auburn this coming up season, specifically, or this past weekend at the spring game, it's been a concern not only for Auburn fans, but it's been something that's been pointed out by every idiot on YouTube like myself, all the way up through professional analysts and commentators, is the Auburn quarterback situation. It's a disaster. The Auburn spring game was a train wreck. It was really, really bad. I know the weather didn't cooperate, and I also know that you can't take what you see in a spring game and 100% extrapolate that to what you're going to see in the regular season. I completely get that, and I'm not trying to jump to that conclusion here. However, heading into any season, there are any number of question marks or potential problems that you forecast for a particular team. And during spring practice and a spring game is your first opportunity as a fan, a commentator, an analyst, whatever you are in the world of college football, to look at that team and see how many of those questions were answered, which of those problems may be on the way to getting fixed. And when it comes to Auburn and specifically the quarterback situation, nothing we saw on Saturday is going to make anybody feel any better about Auburn's quarterback situation heading into next season. Again, that's not to say that Auburn is going to be as bad during the season as they appeared to be this past Saturday. The weather was bad. Players can get better. We have another transfer portal window, which I'm going to talk specifically more about here in just a second. But there's definitely nothing positive you can take from the Auburn spring game to sort of trampoline you into the offseason or into summer conditioning and then fall camp. There was nothing anybody saw in the Auburn spring game on Saturday that made them go, oh, well, they got that figured out. Oh, well, they got their quarterback. Robbie Ashford's not a quarterback. That's number one. Now, there was some hope, a slight whim of a chance, maybe, that people thought, well, Hugh Freeze has had some success working with Robbie Ashford-style quarterbacks in the past. Maybe he can polish that turd. Again, nothing I saw or read or anything about Auburn's spring game this past Saturday leads me to believe that at this point. He just looked bad. Auburn tried to get another quarterback during the first transfer portal period and was unsuccessful. I know they brought Grayson McCall in from Coastal Carolina. There's some other players they were looking at that maybe chose to go to some other places. Grayson McCall, of course, chose to stay at Coastal Carolina, at least for the time being. There is another transfer window that opens up here at the end of April. I believe it's May 1st through May 15th, a 2-week period where after everyone has completed spring practice, players have an opportunity to enter the portal if they choose to. I don't see any other option for Auburn at this point. They have got to go get somebody out of the portal to play quarterback. If not, bowl eligibility is a long shot. If Auburn has the same quarterback room during the season that they have right now, they will struggle to make a bowl game. The quarterback situation at Auburn is that bad. And no matter how good Hugh Freeze is, both as a head coach and as a quarterback coach, I don't think there's any amount of training or working with the quarterbacks that can be done over the next 4 or 5 months to turn Auburn's quarterback room into a workable situation for the 2023 season. Now, with Grayson McCall in particular, there are some rumors out there that the reason he decided to stay at Coastal Carolina a couple of months ago was because he was very close to graduating, and if he transferred, maybe all of his credits wouldn't transfer and it would delay his graduation, whereas if he just stayed at Coastal Carolina for one more semester, this current spring semester, he could graduate and then pretty much transfer wherever he wants, regardless of having to worry about transfer credits. I don't know if that's true or not. If that is true, then I would expect Grayson McCall to enter the transfer portal on May 1st, and I think Auburn would be a potential destination for somebody like a Grayson McCall, the Coastal Carolina QB. But more importantly than Grayson McCall in particular, Auburn has got to go out and get a quarterback through the transfer portal, in my opinion. We've been making a lot of fun of Florida, right, for getting Graham Mertz. Florida was in a similar spot to Auburn. Florida had no reasonable answer at the quarterback position. Anthony Richardson left to go to the NFL. Their backup got arrested for child pornography, and their third-string quarterback was proven to be a complete dud. Jack Legg, or whatever his name is, that played in the bowl game against Oregon State. So they were in a similar situation to Auburn. Did they make Did they hit a home run in the transfer portal? Did they knock it out of the park? Did they get a 5-star or a future first-round NFL draft pick? No. They got Graham Mertz. And look, I'm no Graham Mertz fan. In fact, I don't think he's terrible. He was awful at Wisconsin. He's the reason Wisconsin fired the coach, in my opinion. And I don't think he's going to be successful at Florida at all. But Graham Mertz is a definite upgrade over anything Florida had available to them in Gainesville at the time. Auburn's going to have to make that same decision. If they're not able to land one of the marquee names, if they're not able to land a Grayson McCall or some other unknown name that has yet to enter the portal, and again, we'll find out on May 1st who's entering the portal in this last round of portal entries for this year. It's a 15-day window that players have to enter the portal, May 1st through 15. The most important, the Auburn's got to get somebody. And if they can get somebody with some experience, I think that's even better. And that's something that Graham Mertz at least has. Graham Mertz at least has a couple of years starting experience in the Power 5. Now, that experience is horrendous and terrible, but it is experience nonetheless. Auburn's got to do that, in my opinion, if they've got any chance of making a bowl game in 2023. You look at their schedule: Georgia, Bama, Texas A&M, LSU, Ole Miss. These are all teams, in my opinion, that are better than Auburn and are likely to beat Auburn. And honestly, even with a new quarterback, I think all of those teams are still likely to beat Auburn. But if they improve the quarterback situation and they come together in some other areas, it's possible Auburn could pull off an upset or two. It's going to be very difficult this year for Auburn, but without making a move at the quarterback position for 2023, it just seems like they're fighting an unwinnable battle. I'd love to know from the Auburn fans, are there any Auburn fans out there who would be comfortable heading into 2023 with the quarterbacks you currently have? Is there anybody willing to go out on that limb and say you're okay with Robbie Ashford and company? You don't need another quarterback. Auburn's got to do something, I think, at QB position. I don't know what they'll do. I do think Grayson McCall is somebody they have their eye on. Outside of that, I've got really no names because we don't really know. Take Georgia, for example, with the whole Carson Beck, Brock Vandagriff, Gunnar Stockton deal. It's possible. I don't think it's necessarily likely, but it is possible that one of those three QBs were to enter the portal. Now, they don't have any experience, but I think all three of those, I believe, are more talented and better potential SEC quarterbacks than anybody on Auburn's roster. But I'm not even really talking about any one of Georgia's three quarterbacks in particular. There's other quarterbacks out there that are in a similar situation to some of Georgia's QBs who, after going through spring practice, if they're not happy with where they're at on the depth chart, they could be looking to jump into the portal. And it just seems to me like Auburn's got to do something there. It's almost like going out and getting a bad quarterback out of the portal for Auburn would be better than not getting any quarterback at all, sort of like what Florida did with Graham Mertz. I don't know. Let me know what you think down below.